Evening.
Then, were there technical difficulties?
Yeah. So, anything exciting happening today?
Apparently not. No.
Apparently
Went
not.
to work. Went to work. Came home. That was it.
Should I just run the VT?
Yeah, run the VT.
Run VT.
What's the worst that can happen?
Hi, my name's Dale. I'm the head of brand for Airfix, and let's take a look at the 2022 product range. This year we have two new products to our quick build range. The first, our Jeep Quicksand concept with its flame paint scheme, is bound to capture the imagination of any young modeler. To complement the Quicksand, we're also introducing the Jeep Gladiator Overland, a long wheelbase variant, but still with the iconic Jeep styling. We're really excited to introduce 3 new tooled 1/43rd scale cars to the starter set range this year. We start with 2 supercars, the Bugatti Chiron and Buccaneer Huayra, both in 43rd scale and come moulded in the base colours as seen on the packaging, red or blue. The Bugatti contains 39 parts and Buccaneer 33. In addition to the 2 new supercars, we've tooled a 43rd scale Jaguar E-Type with fantastic detail and only 23 parts moulded in BR green. Lastly, we are reintroducing the 1/400 scale Mary Rose within our starter set range. Starter sets include paint, glue and brushes, everything you need to start this fantastic hobby. Designed with the beginner in mind, our new starter sets include fewer, smaller parts than traditional Airfix kits, all aimed at giving the best experience for the modeler from the outset. First introduced in 2014, the Bristol Blenheim Mark IV F in 1/72nd scale is making a return to the Airfix range after 8 years. Of the 4,422 Blenheims produced, over 3,000 of them were Mark IVs, with around 60 converted to 4Fs. The Bristol Blenheim first entered service in 1937, and after 7 years it was retired from the RAF in 1944. An iconic Luftwaffe bomber, the Heinkel 111 first flight took place in 1935 and went on to see service on every front in the European theatre. This will be the 3rd release of this 1/72nd scale kit since it was tooled in 2015. The box illustration and decal option represents an aircraft which was shot down by a Blackburn Skua of 801 Naval Air Squadron in Norway, but has since later been recovered and restored. A workhorse of the Second World War, the Douglas C-47 Skytrain was produced in great numbers by the Allies and is arguably known for its role in D-Day and Operation Market Garden. This Series 8 kit in 1/72nd scale was first introduced in 2014 and has been released 4 times to date. The first scheme is of 92nd Troop Carrier Squadron in 1944 with D-Day stripes and nose artwork. Kilroy is here, a meme that became popular during the Second World War. The second depicts that of the Military Air Transport Service, MATS, in Canada in 1949 and includes skis. A first for Airfix, we'll have all 3 V-bombers in 72nd scale in the range at the same time. The new tooled Vulcan, the recently released Valiant, and for 22, the reintroduction of the handy Page Victor. Back in the same schemes as it was originally released in 2016, the Victor B Mark II in 1/72nd scale. The 2 decal schemes included are XL 512 139 Squadron RAF Wittering in 1964 and XL 189 RAF Wittering 1968. The latter went on to serve as a tanker during the Black Buck raids on the Falkland Islands. Reintroduced with new schemes, the 1/72nd scale Supermarine Spitfire F Mark 22. First tooled in 2012, this is only the second time this kit has been released. The F51d was the same airframe as wartime P51. The pursuit designation changed to fighter after the war with the formation of the US Air Force. The F51 performed a variety of roles after the war, including service with many Air National Guard squadrons, as well as frontline action during the Korean War. This 2012 tooling has only ever been released once as a F51d over the previous 9 releases. A 2015 tooling, the 1/72nd scale F4 Wildcat. This release includes 2 new deco options. The first deco option shows an aircraft that took part in the Allied invasion of North Africa, Operation Torch, flying from the USS Ranger. The last mark before the famous Harrier retired from RAF and Fleet Air Arm service in 2011, the BAE Harrier Gr1. First released in 2011, this 1/72nd scale kit has only ever been released once before as a classic. The 1/72nd scale Fairy Swordfish Mark 1 was retooled in 2012 and has been released 6 times in various guises since. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the Channel Dash, and our box illustration depicts W5984H as flown by Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond, VC DSO, during Operation Fuller, 11th of February 1942. This kit can also be built with its wings folded. Due for release in time for the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, this 1/72nd scale Harrier FRS-1 was first released back in 2010 and has seen a number of iterations since. This release includes 2 new deco options, XZ459 of 800 Naval Air Squadron aboard HMS Hermes in 1982, which first launched an attack on munitions ship Rio Carcarena. To date, the English Electric Lightning remains the only UK designed and built fighter interceptor to be capable of Mach 2. This release includes 2 new schemes not seen before in 1/72nd. The first Griffon-powered Spitfire, the Mark 12, was an interim design with only 100 being built. This 1/48 scale release includes 2 new deco options, including one with D-Day markings. A recent tooling, the 1/48 scale North American P51d Mustang, was introduced in 2017 and has been released 4 times, but only once with parts to build a K variant. This kit includes 2 new deco options, the Millie G of the US Army Air Force based at RAF Wormingford in 1944, and B scheme Frisco Kid, which is a P51K. A much requested re-release, the Airfix 1/48 scale Western Navy Lynx. This kit has only ever been released once since it was first tooled in 2012. This release will include a new decal option, that of the last Lynx to fire Sea Skewer missile, but also wore special retirement nose artwork. Known as the Flying Pencil, the Dornier 17 was later dropped in favour for the Ju-88. The 17Z had a larger bomb load and better low-level performance, along with upgraded armament, but it was let down by its relative low range. Another first for Airfix, this 1/48 scale Supermarine Spitfire F Mark 18. The base of this kit was first released in 2019, but with the addition of a new rocket sprue, we were able to release this new mark of Spitfire. Previously released in 2021 as a Canadair Sabre F4, this North American F86 F40 Sabre in 48 scale is made possible by extending the wingspan and new leading edge slat parts. This release will include 2 new deco options, the first of the Royal Norwegian Air Force and second of the Japanese Air Self-Defense Force. After the success of our 1/48 scale version, we're excited to introduce our new tooled Meteor F8 in 1/72nd scale. The F8 was a significant upgrade on the F4, which was fitted with a new tail design and carried more fuel. A scheme represents that of Desmond Villiers, the first person to break the sound barrier in an open cockpit, and carries quite distinctive markings. The new tool Avro Anson Mark 1 in 1/48 scale. A highly detailed model kit with superb interior features. First introduced in 1936 and retired by the RAF in '68, a total of 11,020 Ansons were built, with just shy of 7,000 being Mark 1s. The schemes included in this kit have been chosen to represent the wide variety of roles undertaken by the Anson during its service. A scheme represents N9732, the 500 Squadron, based at RAF Detling in 1940. This aircraft was attacked by Bf-109s whilst patrolling the Dunkirk evacuation. During the same sortie, it shot down 2 109s and damaged another. B scheme is of AW665, 71st Squadron of the Royal Australian Air Force, and its experimental anti-submarine scheme being trialled at the time. C scheme represents an earlier version with a more attractive sloped canopy and in RAF trainer paint scheme. Our most highly requested kit of recent times, a 148 scale Buccaneer S2 Royal Navy variant, 288 parts, foldable wings and air brake, and 4 schemes in the box. Introduced in 1962, 211 were built and saw service with the RAF, Fleet Air Arm and South African Air Force, before being retired in '94. This kit has some outstanding detail, including folding wings, removable engine hatch covers and opening air brake. It also includes 4 deco options. The first, an S2D armed with Martel missiles included in the release. Extras included in this kit are TV and AR missiles with TV guidance pod, Royal Navy rocket pods, 1,000-pound freefall bombs and Royal Navy slipper tanks. So here it is, our new super kit 2022, a 124 scale Spitfire Mark 9C with over 12 months in development, 400 plus parts. Is certainly a kit that you need in your collection. A kit worthy of the title super kit. This 124 scale Spitfire Mark 9C is something special. Whilst the model cannot be built without the fuselage and wings, this render really shows off the incredible detail included. The cockpit detail leaves no dial or wire untouched. The Rolls-Royce Merlin engine is a beautiful detailed model in its own right. We've carefully chosen the decal schemes to show a number of variants, which include early and late intakes and breech blisters, plus clipped wings. A scheme ML214 of the 126th Persian Gulf Squadron in 1944. This aircraft later featured distinctive nose art and keel markings, which are included. B scheme EM398, 402 Squadron, 1943. An early Mark 9 with different engine intakes and breech blisters. This aircraft was later flown by Johnny Johnson. C scheme. This aircraft was flown by Garth Jarrett, CO of the 309th Fighter Squadron whilst based in Italy. The aircraft wore his initials and was named Eleanor. And finally, D scheme, MJ897 of the French Air Force, a particularly colourful scheme that utilises the clipped wings included in the kit. Our box illustration shows the Mark 9C patrolling over the convoys of D-Day, June 6, 1944. And to our 135th scale armour range this year, we're releasing 3 new products. The first of which is our Stern Panzer IV Brumbar with 2 new deco options. 306 built and a crew of 5, early vehicles were too heavy for the chassis, which led to frequent breakdowns. Our new Stug 4 includes 2 new deco options from the Eastern Front in 1944. And lastly, our Panzer III, developed in the 1930s and used extensively during the Second World War. These 3 introductions are a staple for any 135th scale armour modeller. The Airfix Vintage Classic range sees a number of old favourites reintroduced, many of which haven't been seen in the market for a number of years. Initially released in 1963 and back in time for the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, the 1:600 scale HMS Devonshire. Another return for the 40th anniversary, the 1/600 scale HMS Fearless. Last released back in 2005 and first tooled in 1968. This release includes 1 landing craft as seen in the illustration. First released in 1962, the 176 scale Js3 Tank. It was last seen in the Airfix range in 2011 and goes perfectly with our next reissue. Second World War Russian infantry figures. These figures were tooled 2 years after the Js3 Tank in 1964. Tooling first introduced in 1974. The Type 97 Shiha medium tank in 76 scale. A perfect pairing for our next re-release. Second World War Japanese infantry figures, again in 76 scale. This figure set was first introduced back in 1974. First released in 1967, the 72nd scale Fiat G50 is making a comeback to the range after being released in the late 90s. Initially released in 1968, and a fairly recent reissue, the Beagle Bassett 206 was last released in 2016, after we asked customers what existing tooling they wanted to see back in the range. The F80C Shooting Star in 1/72nd scale. Tooled in 1973 and last seen in the range back in 1999. Dating back 60 years, this 1956 72nd scale kit, the Westland Whirlwind, is making a return to the range after a 23-year rest. It keeps coming back. The CA13 Boomerang 72nd scale kit has seen 10 releases since it was first tooled in 1965. The Boomerang's last release was back in 1998. Back into the range since 2007, the 72nd scale de Havilland Beaver, first released in 1971. This kit also includes floats. The first jet super kit from Airfix, the Hawker Siddeley Harrier Gr1 in 1/24 scale. First released in 1974, the Harrier Gr1 is worthy of the title super kit, even with today's standards. The box illustration depicts XV788 of 1 Squadron RAF Wittering. This aircraft later crashed in Belize after a bird strike in 1975. That's our 22 product range. Some exciting new products in there, new tools, classic releases, and we look forward to releasing them during the course of the year. Thanks for watching.
Well, that's the end of the night's show. Good night, everybody.
That's all we wanted to show.
Bye.
Bye.
It's always nice to have somebody do all the hard work for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Good work. Good work, Dale.
Well done, Dale. Absolutely. So, right, before we start, obviously, I have to declare an interest here because, you know, some of you may or may not know that I draw a lot of the stickers for Airfix. So I'm going to try not to interject my own enthusiasm or editorialize here. I'm going to let you two kind of carry the can. I'll let you two do the heavy lifting tonight. So, to quote Dylan Thomas, shall we begin at the beginning?
Yeah, I tell you what, the bottom two schemes of that really, really appeal.
Spencer's tapping away there furiously.
I've been excited about this for, well, I've been excited about this. I think that's all I can say really, but it's just every so often a kit will define a range, and this kit, much like the 24 scale Mark 1, defines the Airfix range for the 21st century. I think of that there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever, and I think that the only surprising thing for me is that it's taken this long for them to do a new 24 scale Spitfire. I think that that's the kind of where we are with this whole thing. Seeing the drawings, the renderings of this kit and how it will appear when it's finally released later this year gives you some indication of how nice it's going to be and how detailed it's going to be. And having built the Hellcat, this seems like it's maybe another step on from that to produce a kit that will go head to head with, I guess, to me, a 32nd scale range of Spitfires, which are kind of benchmarks. But it looks absolutely magnificent. It's a brilliant choice of version as well. I think if they'd gone down the Mark 1 route or the Mark 5 route, I think that it would have been seen as being a great release. But this one offers so many possibilities and so much potential for color schemes and marking options and that kind of thing. But it looks, I mean, spectacular gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it? But it looks absolutely spectacular from these renders. And my brain has been kind of whirring over this, and I'm already long down the path of deciding what I'm going to do with it. I should say right from the off, before I get kind of lynched further down the line. I will be building one of these. I've got every intention of building one of these, and it's planned. I will be working alongside Sir Jonathan of Mark, who is co-presenter tonight on a project later in the year. And the picture that you see on the screen is the one that I'll be building. I've already made my mind up about that, so I will be doing MJ897. I'm not going to do an RAF one. I've done enough RAF Spitfires over the years, and the sort of the option to do a clipped wing aircraft that's trimmed in the way that this one is. I think that's the one that I'm going to do, and it's very, very unlikely that I would ever choose another version. But this is really such an exciting release, and there's been a kind of a lot of chatter about it, I guess, since yesterday, and we've all sort of had our opinions and seen opinions on it, but I think that this is a defining moment for that super kit range. This is where the company that has made a name for itself over the years for producing kits of Spitfires, and Airfix have been sort of pretty open about the idea that they would cover pretty much every mark of Spitfire if they could. And I'm not suggesting that's going to happen in 24 scale, but certainly across the scales. And conversations have been had over the years that is an intention. So to see this one appear in their showcase range, in their sort of premier platinum range, is something I think that everybody is going to get kind of excited about.
Well, you say everybody's going to get excited about it, because obviously there are people who were less than happy at the prospect of another Spitfire turning up from out of the blue. And I was having a think about this evening as I was walking back from Lidl with my shopping, and I was thinking that the thing is, when you've got companies like Airfix who have such a strong association with the Spitfire, it's a bit like a band playing its greatest hits, isn't it? You wouldn't go to an Eagles gig and then not expect them to play Hotel California. And no. This is a similar kind of thing, is that obviously they've come back and they've reinvigorated the 24 scale super kit range for the first time in decades by doing the all new kits, not just repops of other ones with new bits, actual genuine new kits. So we started off with the Mosquito, then we've had 2 iterations of the Typhoon, then we've had the Hellcat, now we're having a Spitfire. Spitfire to me is a no-brainer. It's a greatest hits package. Yeah. And I think it's always that catch-22. If they had retooled and done a brand new Mark 1 in 24 scale, you know what people would have been saying? Should have been a Mark 9.
Yeah,
they do a Mark 9. People say it should have been a Mark 1. Or you just get people who say it shouldn't have been a Spitfire. It should have been, I don't know, something else.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of conversation that's often had about Spitfires, it has come up a lot over the last couple of days, and it's been something it's just been endless. Not another Spitfire. Why is it another Spitfire? Well, it's another Spitfire because Spitfires generate the money that Airfix need to make Ansons.
Yep.
Generates the money that Airfix need to make Buccaneers.
That a Spitfire by Airfix at any point is going to be a no-brainer.
It's a greatest hits package.
They could announce and release a new tooled 124 scale Spitfire 5B next year, straight after the Mark 9, make it an entirely new tool. And if you did anything but go, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yes,
you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
If you do anything but say that just makes perfect sense. And the other thing is with the super scale kits, they are a massive investment in research, time, tooling, engineering. They're a massive investment. If the stuff they've already released since the rejuvenation of this range wasn't selling, you wouldn't be getting a 24 scale Spitfire 9.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's justified itself already.
Yeah, I mean,
by the fact that they're not going to make that kind of scale of investment in something without knowing they are going to make that back, and that right quick, I would suggest.
Yeah, and also there's a thing about the Mark 1 that I think kind of comes up really. We've all built Mark 1s. I built two Tamiya 48 scale Mark 1s recently. There's very little you can do with a Mark 1 that isn't, you know, kind of grey and green. That's not sort of brown and green camouflage with sky or sky and black underneath. That's pretty much it. Whereas, so if you have a 24 scale Mark 1, people are probably only going to build one of them because one Mark 1 looks pretty much like another Mark 1. Whereas with a Mark 9, you can build a whole raft of them and never cover the same ground
right
twice.
in saying the Mark 9 was the most produced variant anyway, wasn't it? It was like 7,500 of them or something like that. Of a total production run of like 20,000, 1 in 3 were Mark 9s.
And the other thing about that as well is it doesn't just appeal to modelers in the UK because it had foreign operators.
Well, here's the thing:
I'm looking at used by other air forces where the Mark 1 wasn't. So I think really a Mark 1. I'm not so sure that that's a kind of a good idea.
I think the Mark 9 is I think the Mark 9 is the no-brainer choice of a no-brainer selection.
Yeah,
it really is. And what you said about the foreign operators, you know, you're saying the French one is the one I'm doing. I'm really, really taken with American Spitfires these days. I really, really am taken with, because I've been reading about the American involvement in World War II in terms of the aviation element with the US Army Air Corps and Air Forces and stuff, and I'm becoming really, really attached to the idea of doing a few American Spitfires. So, you know, there's Eleanor, one of the more famous, you know, American Spitfires, and it's a Mark 9.
Yeah.
Obvious choice, and I really like Desert Scheme Spitfires as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think that was why I had this. I've had this conversation with John about the French one. It's just the idea of creating something slightly different from it's that creating a model that's 5% of Spitfires rather than 95% of Spitfires. You know, and that's what this kit offers. It offers possibilities. I mean, you think of, I don't know, the Israelis flew Mark 9s, didn't they? You know, that all black one with the red stripe.
There is also
legion numbers of them.
Because what you didn't see in that video, but what you did see on the video that Airfix posted up on YouTube on Sunday when they announced the kit, is that it does include the broad-chord rudder, even though that's not one of the options in this one. Now, obviously, you know, there are a lot of little minutiae differences with the Mark 9, you know, and you've got a certain amount of crossover between that and the Mark 8 and also the Mark 16. So you can see modelers' minds are racing at the moment to think, well, even if the kit only goes so far, it's giving me the platform to actually do this. And the aftermarket guys are going to be looking at it and thinking, well, if they're not doing this, then we can do this and we can do this.
Yeah.
So you've actually got, you know, I had this conversation with somebody last night as to whether it should have been a Mark 8 or a Mark 9. They were of the opinion it should have been a Mark 8.
No.
I was of the opinion it should have been a Mark 9. So
if you were to ask me, if somebody was to say, we're doing a Merlin-powered Spitfire in 24 scale, you get to pick the version to suit yourself. I would say a Mark 8 because it's my favorite Mark of Merlin Spitfire. If they said, we're doing a Merlin powered Spitfire, which one do you think we should do? I'd say a Mark 9.
Yeah.
You know, people quite often don't really separate their personal preference from a logical choice.
I mean, you can sort of push that, can't you, and go down that road with a conversation about large-scale Spitfires and say, well, maybe we need a large-scale Griffin engine Spitfire.
Well, I mean, that was going to be my next point, was that if somebody said we're doing another Spitfire in 24, which one do you want?
Yeah,
it's a Mark 14. It's a no-brainer for me.
It's
because it's my in amongst my you know, the Mark 8 is my favorite Merlin-powered Spitfire.
Yeah,
the Mark 14 is a Mark 8 with a Merlin, with a Griffin. So, you know, it therefore directly follows that my favorite Griffin engine Spitfire is a Mark 14. You know, but again, it's kind of like if you said we're doing a Spitfire, you get to choose which variant we do based on, you know, what is going to sell for us. You're going to say a Mark 9.
Yeah, I mean,
If you're gonna-
certainly, I'm with you on the Mark 14 is beautiful. There's just something about Griffin engine Spitfires, I think, that sort of set them apart. But as a platform for other things, this seems to me to be the logical route to go down, and the logical release, and the one that offers most possibilities. And I would imagine that the aftermarket guys, decal manufacturers in particular, must be sharpening their pencils already. They must be begging Airfix for measurements so that they can create transfer sheets and allow decals to be released for this kit. Edward must be looking at this thinking, oh, what can we do with this thing? You know, it's those sort of possibilities that have arisen. And unlike the Hellcat, when that was released, that was kind of limited in the marking options for that variant, as we talked about the other night. This has no such limitations.
And I would be prepared to bet that this is going to be one of the first kits where a very large proportion of the aftermarket accessories for it are going to be 3D printed and sold as 3D prints, not as cast resin. I would say that this is going to be one of the first kits where that starts to become a major thing.
Yeah, it's the hobbies. You always kind of sense every now and then that the hobby suddenly makes a bit of a not a seismic shift, but you know what I mean. There is a sudden kind of like there is a catalyst moment, and I think this is going to be one of those things where, well, yes, we've had 3D printed stuff for a number of years now, but something has turned up now which the aftermarket guys and girls are going to be looking at this thinking, you know, we'll have a slice of that.
And over the last couple of years, the kind of the quality of 3D printing available at a reasonable price has just exploded. So now you get into the stage where these people, these manufacturers, can start looking at using it as a, you know, as a production.
Here we go. We just got a comment here from Paul Bennett. It says Roy Sutherland we'll have a field day with the Spitfire. Indeed, he will. I'm sure Roy is a very, very happy chappy at the moment. I
would imagine he's just salivating over this.
Absolutely. We're going to try and not get stuck on one release tonight because we've got some more, and we're going to try and cram in some of the reissues and the vintage clash. We might overrun massively tonight, but never mind. But I will say, going back to this thing where you get people just kind of, oh, not another Spitfire, not another Spitfire. There's a very good reason why, from the ashes of Wingnut Wings, Qatari decided that their first release would be
a Spitfire.
You know,
it's just it's an absolute no-brainer of a selection. And a logical variant choice of a no-brainer selection.
I mean, certainly for Airfix, for them, I would have been astonished if they hadn't have gone down this path. But equally, if they decided that they were going to do Messerschmitt 109E in 24th and retooled that and did a super kit of a 109E, you probably wouldn't have raised an eyebrow at that either. Because again,
you'd have said it's a logical
anchor, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a logical choice in that kind of in that milieu of, you know, really obvious choices. You know, if they'd retooled a P51d in 24th scale, or you know, or if they decided to do a P51b, Lord,
yes.
Calm down.
Calm down. Come on.
But you know, you still wouldn't have batted an eyelid. Those are such obvious, you know, choices. It's just that the kind of history of Airfix with the Spitfire, it just dictates that sooner or later this had to happen. And like you say, it's remarkable that we've had, you know, the Mosquito and the Typhoon and the Hellcat along the way before we got to another Spitfire.
But do you know what one of the most consistent things was? That when the Typhoon was announced back in 2013, and when the Hellcat was released a couple of years ago, I did keep an eye on the comments on social media and forums, and the number of people who said, "Oh, it's nice, but I wish it was a Spitfire Mark 9."
Yeah.
There you go. I don't think it's a great leap of faith to suggest in the middle of January of 2022 that this is going to sell by the bucket load. I mean, I heard something yesterday, and it's difficult to know whether or not this was true or not, but one of the online retailers was already taking pre-orders for this thing, you know, and they were just shooting.
I mean, it makes sense because it's going to be a good way to gauge how many, you know, how many lorry loads of them you're going to have to order from Airfix. It's almost one of those ones where you could see them putting significant wear on the molds in the first run. You know, it really is. And again, like I say, I go back to, if the previous stuff, albeit not as seemingly no-brainer choices as a Spitfire, sold enough for them to say, okay, we can do a Spitfire now. If it's returned the you know, if its return on the investment is that high, then this is a range that it doesn't matter what people say is going to keep on going.
Yeah, and we should reinforce and reiterate on here as well. This is Airfix's big range. This is their large-scale aircraft range. So we need to once again reiterate, they're not going to do 32nd scale aircraft. 24 scale is their upper end kit. So people saying, oh, they should do 32nd scale, they should do this, should they do that, and everything. 24th is the Airfix range that allows them to do these super kits. They're not going to be going down the 32nd scale route. And with that, they'll probably announce tomorrow that they're producing a brand new range of 32nd scale Uber kits. That's
the Phantom FG1, you mean?
Pardon?
The Phantom FG1 they're doing.
Yes, Phantom. And the brand new Harrier Gr1 that they're about to release.
Well,
so,
when it comes to Harriers, a bit later on actually, because there's an interesting thing about Harriers in the range this year. But we are going to have to move it along as much as we could spend the whole night talking about Spitfires. In fact, one of the things I think we'll do on a future show is that when we've had this thing with people saying, "Oh God, blimey, Pete, not another Spitfire," and it's like, well, actually, when you look through the timeline over the last kind of 30 to 40 years of Spitfire releases, it's amazing how long we had to wait to get a 48 scale Spitfire Mark 9. You know, it's how long. So, you know, and you could say the same for 109s. You know, it wasn't until the late 80s did we actually finally get a decent 48 scale 109. So, actually, I think there is a bit of not debunking, but there's a bit of perspective to be put into this, in as much as there have been a lot of Spitfire. Let's say there have been a number of Spitfire kits released down the years. But how many of them have actually been any good?
And the other thing about the reissues, I guess, of Spitfires in the Airfix range in this list, why wouldn't they reissue kits that they know are going to make money for them when the only outlay is a new box, a set of instructions, and a new set of decals?
Yeah. It's the greatest.
Hazigar have been doing it for decades.
Yeah. It's the greatest hits package. There you go. Let's move on. Now, this one I know.
Greatest kits.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, this one I know has certainly got Drew interested. Because he's doing a certain amount of saber rattling today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the original kit. Bless it. I mean, I built it several times. I know John's built it several times.
I built the first one.
Yeah. I don't know about Spencer. I don't know if Spencer's ever built one.
The original.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Yeah. I did it in.
And I think, you know, we can all agree that it was a kit that was immensely popular because of the subject rather than the execution. I think it's fair to say.
Yes, very well put.
Because it you know, no matter how many times you point people towards John's explanation of how you get the fuselage halves together, there's a reason why you had to be told how to do that.
Yes,
because they didn't go together, because it was a difficult kit, like you said, tough love, and so sort of harnessing the research, if you like, that was done a couple of years ago to tool a new one in 48 scale. Bear in mind, it's nearly 30 years since the original kit.
1994,
wasn't it? So it's not like you know, it's not like that this has been retooled 2 or 3 years after everybody said how awful the original was. You know, this is nearly 30 years down the line.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, the argument is very easily made that it's time.
Yeah.
It's time for a new 148 scale Buccaneer, and like I say, it's not a scale up of the 72nd scale kit. It's just harnessing the research that was done for that kit.
Exactly.
And you know, in fact, it's very easy to see how much of a broader scope this kit has, even than the 72nd one, in terms of, you know, underwing stores and things like that. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this. Hope I can get one to build.
I'm sure that could be arranged.
It'd be nice. It would be nice.
Sure could be arranged.
But yeah, I mean, it's the Buccaneer is an aircraft that is very, very dear to my entire family, because it was what Dad worked on in the 60s, Mark 1s and 2s, in the Fleet Air Arm. So we are a Buccaneer family, very much.
Yep.
So my enthusiasm, you won't get me to curb my enthusiasm, I'm afraid. It's in full flow for a new 48 scale Buccaneer. Big old model in 48 scale as well.
It is
big imposing model. Something that always strikes me is you see that there's a full load of anti-radar and television guided Martels there. If you've ever seen the Martel hanging in the foyer of Cosford, what an enormous missile!
Yes,
it's vast,
absolutely gigantic missile. And sort of, and any aircraft that's carrying, you know, 4 of those, or the Sea Eagle is you know, by definition a big beast itself. So obviously a breakdown that's going to allow other variants down the line. You know, the RAF one stuff. Maybe a South African one would be nice. Yeah. I wouldn't say it was overdue, but it's one that to me makes sense as a new, you know, as a new project for this year, 30 years after the original 48 scale one.
I'm just going to throw my hat to the ring here and say that a couple of features that I do like, and obviously I am biased, but a couple of features I do like is the FOD guards, because means you don't have to paint the intake interiors, and also the ladders I think is rather nifty. And
that's what sort of leads you to the, you know, it's not a scale up of the 72nd scale one. It might be harnessing the research, but as you can see, there's FOD guards, there's an engine access guard that opens, all this sort of stuff. It just makes it, you know, it makes it a very, very attractive package, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
A very attractive package. Yes, I look forward to building 1 or 2 of those. I've built a pair of the 72nd scale ones. I do love the Buccaneer. I've got another couple of 72nd scale ones possibly back there waiting to be built. Yeah, 48 scale one will. Yes, please. Yes, please.
I just know what I can't get it around my head that the 48 scale one came out 28 years ago, because I can remember when it was. I can remember when it was actually kind of like announced, which was Castle Donington, 1993.
Yeah.
The strains of Counterparts still fresh in my ears from turning up at Donington that year, and there was one guy, he did a little jig of joy when he found out that it was kind of like coming next year, and now that kit's effectively retired now, and we're onto a new one, and it's nearly 30 years ago, and my brain can't handle that. And like I say, I actually built one of the first ones, the first actual proper kit, and I had it on my display case for at least a day after it was finished. And then Mr. Andrew Farmer came round. Didn't offer me a job in the fire escape trade, but he did say, "We'll have that." And that was the last I ever saw of it. And that was the one that was featured in Scale Models.
Scale Models, yeah,
exactly.
The grey and white one.
No, it was a pink one. Golf
Oh,
one.
you did, because you did a grey and white one as well, didn't you?
I did the grey and white one later on, and we'll
Yeah.
come to the fact that people are going to be asking, you know, are there going to be grey and white ones? To which I would have to point to the fact that the grey and white ones have that. There's a fairing difference between the Mark Cs and the Mark. Some of the S2s had that fairing between the intake and the fuselage, and some didn't. The original kit kind of fudged it by trying to ignore it, but you know, these days you can't. So that's why you've only got all grey S2Ds.
Was to reduce noise, that fairing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
To reduce noise.
Didn't stop us, did it?
No, clearly not.
Does that tickle your funny bone, Mr. Pollard?
It does. Yeah, absolutely. It does. And it's Airfix have been saying for some time that it's like almost top of the list of kits that people want.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's if you notice on social media and on forums and things that it constantly, it's just when the 72nd scale one came out, oh, it'd be great, but you know, we really people want a 48 scale one. They want a brand new 48 scale Buccaneer. Here it is.
Yeah,
and yet I've noticed over the last couple of days there are still people who say who in general say, oh, you know, kit companies need to listen to their customers.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, and I Airfix at the moment seem to be trawling through the major kits, RAF post-war RAF subjects, which I think has got to be seen as being a good thing now that they've done the Buccaneer. Fingers crossed that they'll approach Sepicat's masterpiece at some point, because that is
Aerospatiale
long overdue for a reworking by Airfix, and also maybe they'll decide that, having done it in 72nd scale, they'll do a second generation Harrier as well, because I think that they would pretty much ace that release too. But it's good to see them covering these. Also, I suppose the British Phantom would be good in 48 scale.
I think, I mean, as they are slowly sort of tapping that seam of post-war British subjects. But yeah, like you say, I mean, there's the Jaguar would probably be top of my list of
Mine as well.
Do you know what I would say?
New tool.
Do you know what I would say is in
Puma would
favour
be
of that?
second.
You know what I'd say is in favour of that is the fact that they don't have access to the tooling anymore. The Hella, it was a Hella tooled kit, and that went with Hella after the divorce, and which has now subsequently popped up in the Revell range. So spin the wheel; it could be anybody's kit, but it's Hella, and you know.
And so we can sort of see the kind of the way that Airfix are traveling with their releases, covering major RAF subjects, and I think that gives you a fair indication of what you're likely to see over the sort of the coming years from them. They're not going to go for esoteric foreign subjects. They're going to try as much as they can. If they go for those kind of subjects, they will probably, you know, they'll go for the classics. I think we talked maybe last year on this channel about possibilities and things that would be perhaps a good idea. You know, following the B-17 Flying Fortress, B-24 Liberator would be another one that we sort of suggested, didn't we? Those kind of things. But this 48th scale range that they're doing of classic post-war British jets is one to embrace, and I think it's really exciting to see these subjects appearing. And I, for one, I couldn't be happier really to see this. My only caveat to this is because although I come from a Navy family, which is slightly, I guess, slightly obtuse, I would rather have seen the RAF version appear first, and then flip what they did with the 72nd.
Yeah, I mean, because we had this discussion before we came on air tonight, didn't we? And I was much the same. I would rather have seen the cut me in half, and I've got Fly Navy written right through me because I'm a naval family. But it would have been nice to flip the 72nd scale schedule around and release the RAF one first and 48th.
Yeah, and the reason for that is that as we have discussed on this program before, RAF aircraft always look best in wraparound grey and green camouflage with red and blue roundels, and that's simply a fact of life. and Buccaneers are no exception to the rule.
No, sorry, that's sorry, that's just wrong. I'm gonna have to stop you there. I know where you're coming from, but these days anything shiny with D-type roundels, I prefer that. But there we go. Now the funny thing is, we've been talking about, you know, we skirted on it earlier on about why kit companies do the things that will sell. Stop it. Why kit companies do the things that sell, and that is often also to take a punt on the things that are a little bit more
because it allows them to do.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it allows them to do walruses, it allows them to do chipmunks. So that chipmunk seems to be spectacularly popular at the moment, but then it also allows them to do ta-da,
An Avro Anson in 48 scale.
48 scale.
I have to say that of the releases, and I include the Spitfire in this is the one that I like the most. I think this has become my favorite. In the summer, we have a weekend visitor over the little town that I live in. The UK's flying Anson comes in and out of Sleep, which is only sort of 10-15 miles away, and it trundles over the house, usually on a Sunday, and you can hear the roar of those radial engines. And every time it comes over, I think, oh, I really want to build one of these things. It's so graceful, and you know, it sort of feels like it's lumbering and it's noisy and everything. And here we are. It gives me the opportunity to build one, and I have to say, if these renders are anything to go by, and I have no doubt that they are everything to go by, it's going to be brilliant, isn't it? It's going to be just a sensational looking model. And also because of all of the glazing, literally a greenhouse surrounding the cockpit, you're going to see all of that detail as well, aren't you? It's really is going to be something.
This has been I've kind of had updates on this over the last year. And this has been a real kind of like labour of love for Matt Whiting at Hornsey, because he's really thrown himself into it. And yeah, I mean, they're all brilliant designers at Hornby, it has to be said. Matt has just he has just developed this kind of affinity with the Anson over the last year, and you know, there's discussions we were having. He was very keen to make sure that the wings, somebody said today, you know, are the wings going to have some kind of awful fabric effect? And Matt actually responded and said, no, it's plywood. And they've tried to go to some extent to capture that kind of mixed kind of like material kind of look of the actual aircraft. I am especially grateful for the fact that this kit includes the sloping windscreen, because I think that is the thing that makes the Anson look pretty darn cool. In fact, it is a little bit of trivia for you, is that the original Airfix Anson kit in 72nd scale, when Roy Cross went to do a new box art painting for it in the 1970s, Roy painted it with the sloping windscreen, but the kit has the upright windscreen.
Right.
There you go. But yeah, this I've got to say, out of all these, and I can, you know, and I do have a vested interest. This is my favourite because it's offbeat. It's a wonderful looking airplane. It's like I say, especially the Mark 1 with the sloping windscreen, and yeah, I think it's a fabulous choice, and nobody can accuse Airfix of not doing something out of the ordinary. So there you go.
Oh, that's glorious.
It is really pretty.
That has my attention, that scheme.
That one does. That's fabulous. Look at that.
That one.
And the great thing about the Anson when it was released as well, it just took you back. I saw the release and I was like 12 again. You know, when you're looking through the catalogue and looking at the original 72nd scale Anson release, thinking, that's the sort of model I'd like to build. You know, when you're a kid, you go, which one just looks peculiar and looks like it's got lots of bits. And that was the one really. So I'm absolutely delighted to see this thing appear. I can't wait to have a go at one.
I'll tell you, one of the things that always surprises me when I've been close to an Anson or even held the old Airfix 72nd scale kit, it's a big aeroplane. You really don't appreciate you. I always thought it was about the same size as an Airspeed Oxford, because you know, both these little RAF twin-engined, you know, aeroplanes, and I thought it was about the same size as an Airspeed Oxford. And I had a Frog one time and an Airfix one, and went, oh.
Yeah.
You know, it's about 50% bigger in all dimensions.
Certainly,
than
when
the
when you see it in the air, it's very imposing. When you see it fly over, it almost we had a Dakota as a visitor over these parts as well a couple of years ago, and I'm sure it's not the same size. Before anybody suggested that it is, but it had the same sort of feel, that same kind of lumbering look about it when it's in the air. It's definitely not, doesn't come across as being a light airplane. And the thing that's so sort of enigmatic about this thing as well, you can hear it from miles away. You can hear it long before, you know, you can pretty much hear it in the distance, make yourself a cup of tea and then go out in the garden and wait for it to kind of
because it's got those sort of earlier generation radials that make a really you know, a racket.
They
a
make
real
a huge
racket.
noise. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there you go. As big as a Blenheim. Yeah, big airplanes, you know.
Yeah, big broad chord wing as well.
Yeah, and you know, in 48 scale, that is going to be an imposing model.
It's intriguing that the three of us, I'm sure that Drew's sort of favourite is probably the Buccaneer, but the three of us are excited about something that's this slightly off the wall as a release.
As much as I yes, the Buccaneer obviously for me, but I cannot wait to get my hands on the Anson.
No, mate.
But just there's just it feels like it's going to be an enjoyable project, whatever you choose to do with it. It's got,
and also because
it.
It's such dissimilar material as well, like you suggested with the plywood and the fabric and the metal and everything. That opens up possibilities for painting dissimilar material and trying to play with that as well, which I think would be good fun. This is it's certainly a release of the year for me, and I don't think I'm likely to change my mind too much over the coming 12 months, but definitely one that I'm looking forward to.
Do you know what? Of all the releases this year, I can't really put my hand on my heart and say I've got a favourite.
No,
I think they're all great. I really, really do. I think it's moving on to the.
We haven't finished because there is yet another new 72nd. There's a new 72nd scale. It's all been 24th and 48 scale. The 72nd scale model is probably being a bit left out. Well, don't worry, you're not.
Yeah. Yes, please. You know, same thing. It's a you know, a Meteor, having a Meteor in the range in you know, major scales is again, it strikes as a no-brainer for a largely British oriented company, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, the Mark 8, I think I'm right in saying the Mark 8 was the most produced variant of the Meteor.
I think in terms of its production numbers and the number of people who operated it, I think the word ubiquitous is an understatement.
Yeah. I mean, you know, every continent, wasn't it? Every continent, you know, from Argentina through to, you know, through to the Far East, they were used.
It's nice as well to see that your choices of the decal choice on there, that you've got a Belgian Air Force aircraft on there as well, from what I can see. Which I think is a nice choice. And that's also good with some of these reissues as well. I guess we'll come back to this at some point. Is the opportunity with the reissues to be able to do operators that have sort of hitherto not been replicated before. I think one of the ones that we may come up to, and we may discuss later on, I think might be the first time ever that Airfix have got those markings in a kit package.
Oh well, we'll have to jog my memory when we come to that.
And I think and that's the F86 Sabre.
Yes, we'll come to that in a minute. But this again, what Drew was saying just now about the Buccaneer. This, I hate that term. They've scaled it down. No, they haven't scaled it down. What they've done is they've used the research and you know, and some of the outline data, but then started again, essentially. So it's not a case of, you don't just feed the data into a computer, press the button that says scale down, and that's it. You know, it's more, you have lots of things that you have to redesign parts for thickness, you have to redesign parts for draft angles. In some cases, you actually have to change the breakdown, you know, etc., etc., etc. But what we can see with this one is that it does mirror many aspects of its larger 48 scale brother, in as much as you are getting the different canopies. The website mentioned that you do get the small and the large mouth intakes. There are the drop tanks and the big belly tank as well.
That
I'm looking
detail
at
in
that.
the
I'm seeing differences in the breakdown just from the renders there, from the 48 scale kit. So you can immediately see that it's not, you know, they haven't hit the shrinking machine.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? It's because you can't do that. If you scale a 148 scale kit straight down to 40 to 72nd, you know, with a, you know, like I say, hit the scale down button, you'll end up with a clumsy model.
Yep.
Because it just those things do not scale the same way. And so you know, you can start with the same data because the data comes from a full size, you know, original. But how you then execute that is going to be completely different. It has to be. You know, and we've seen kits in the past, where you've had direct scale up and scale downs, and it you know, it works one way but never the other.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yep. And I can also tell you that down the years, 48 scale, well, it's not 48 scale, Meteor F8s have been up there alongside Hunters as being the thing everybody asks for all the time. So now you've had it in 48 scale, you're now getting it in 72nd scale, all bases covered. I know people are going to say, oh, I wish it was 24 scale. But yeah, all bases covered now. And as I say, it's such a ubiquitous aeroplane. And do you know what? It's just such a damn shame Mike McAvoy can't enjoy this kit.
yes,
He would have loved this. He would have been absolutely cock a hoop. So, you know, I think to anybody buying this kit this year, if you're going to buy one, buy another one and build that one in memory of Mike McAvoy. Yeah, what a shame. I think Mike would have loved this. It was, you know, it was of his era, it was of his contemporaries. But yeah, almost as much of a no-brainer as a Spitfire in many respects. And as I say, we've got 3 schemes there, 2 RAF and 1 Belgium. But you know, the sky is literally the limit when it comes to you know.
Yes, again, I'm sure it's one of those kits that the aftermarket decal manufacturers will be able to get to grips with some alacrity.
Yeah,
and certainly if this 72nd scale kit reaches the heights in that scale that the 48 scale kit reached in its scale, people will really like this one, because the 48 scale Meteor is really nice, isn't it? It's got loads of detail in it.
Yes, I built the
builds on that.
I built the FR9, and it was is a very, very nice kit to build. Very nice kit to build. Really enjoyed it. So I don't see any reason why this need be any different. Great choice.
Yeah, confirmation there from Luke that 2 canopies and 2 types of intake in the kit. So yeah, it just opens the floodgates then for either Airfix to come back and revisit it with more variants, or for the aftermarket to take over, because at the end of the day, it's the aftermarket. You know, it still guarantees a sale of the kit, doesn't it? So
I'm looking at that. I'm looking at that render there, and looking at the fairing on the spine. Is that not an Australian thing?
I will have to go away and have a look at that.
Just saying.
Just saying. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will have to go and you caught me on the hoop there. So possibly. Yes. That's going to get people talking now, isn't it?
Well, you know, it's there in the
fair enough.
So you can only.
Well, apparently it is.
Yeah. I like to think of these things as
it's an ADF antenna. I think it was a direction finding antenna.
Yeah.
So make of that what you will, people.
Wink.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
What's today?
yeah,
I
just
think
not
these things
saying
are
another
put
word.
there as Easter eggs to get people talking sometimes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, job well done. Here we are
job well
talking.
done. We do, goodness me, we're probably going to break the record tonight and go beyond the 90 minutes. But unless you want to rattle through, we want to rattle through some of the other stuff that's coming along, which I'm desperately trying to kind of queue up at the moment. We do have some armor coming out this year, and these are cooperations with Academy in South Korea. So Airfix are bringing out the Stug 4, which I do like a Stug.
That is an attractive little vehicle, isn't it?
It is. It's very, very nice. They're also doing the. Sorry, I'm just trying to call up the images here. They're also doing a boxing of the Panzer 3J, and I just think the Panzer 3 is just one of those fabulously looking compact tanks. I know I've mentioned it on the show before, but I do like the Panzer 3. I think it's just, proper tank. That whenever I'm down at Bovington, I just think I haven't built one. I've never built a 35th scale one, so I must rectify that.
And if that's a collaboration with Academy, isn't that Academy kit relatively recent as a release?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think it might be, mightn't it? It might have only appeared in the last sort of few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think clearly the Cromwell and stuff were collaborations, or were there was Academy input into those. So I think they're definitely picking the highest quality stuff for their collaborations, shall we say?
Yeah.
It's not going to be a 25 or 30-year-old Academy kit, and like I said with Academy's releases this year, the thing with Academy is that they are so good these days that you just don't have to worry about it. You're going to get a great model.
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
regardless of which
this one was pretty well received, that's for sure.
And they're also doing a boxing of the Brumbear as well, which is, I've built the Tamiya version. I built the Tamiya kit rather, and it's a fair old bit of heft. This, it's it's not a small vehicle by any means. Just that superstructure just adds a certain amount of bulk to it, which just makes it like a really big kind of vehicle. So yep. So not actual new toolings from Airfix, but they're not the. Let's put it this way: they're not the only kit company that does these kind of cooperative reboxings. So
no, and I think the benefit of this sort of thing is quite often it makes a kit which was previously a little bit difficult to find available in every shop you go in all of a sudden. So you have to sort of look at these things in those lights as well. It's like the Hobby 2000 stuff in the last couple of years has suddenly made Hasegawa and Fujimi stuff that you haven't seen for many years available for really, really good prices. I think it's to be generally applauded that they're made available.
Now let's go back to jets. Bow.
That's a beautiful piece of box art. I really, really like that.
Fabulous.
I really like that.
So this is the F40 Sabre, extended wingtips, slatted wings, which is allowed Airfix to recreate two foreign operators away from the RAF jets that were in the previous F4 release that we took a look at and I built last year. This was the one I was talking about because, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time that Airfix have released a kit that's got Japanese Air Self-Defense Force markings in it. And
first I can remember. Yeah,
you are correct.
I don't believe that Norwegian Air Force ones can't pin that down. I have a feeling that they may have appeared, but certainly not the Japanese ones. And because of those extended wings, it's allowed those jets to be produced. And also, I guess it opens up the possibilities as well, because it's now a set of slatted wings, possibilities as well for Canadair slatted jets in Canadian Air Force markings as well.
That's one you've got to be very, very careful of, because as far as I'm aware, Canadair's Mark 6 Sabre was the only slatted wing Sabre with a 6.3 wing as well.
Yeah, I've got a book that I picked up from. I say the reason I'm sort of umming and ahhing about that is because that is a minefield of
Absolutely, absolutely, it is. Yeah,
it is lit. There's a hardback book that I was gifted when I went over to Canada the last time, and it's about 500 pages. This book, and it sort of goes through all of that, and it is literally a minefield of almost pick an aircraft and decide and work out what wings it had, because they were sort of all over the place in terms of hard and soft and slatted wings and extended.
And they were retrofitted as well. You could find them. But as far as I'm aware, the Canadair Mark 6s were the only slatted wing 6.3 wings.
Yeah,
shall we say?
Oh, to answer, David Hansen said, yeah, it's the Larry Milbury book. It is just a sort of a Bible for these things. But away from that, I'm so pleased to see a Japanese one appear, and those markings are glorious for this aircraft. I think that's fabulous to see.
Yeah, so, it's the first Japanese jet, so to speak, to appear in the Airfix range.
Yeah, what a choice. Really, what a choice that is. But then the Norwegian Air Force one's lovely as well, isn't it? So
yes,
I think that's definitely going to be a release that allows some nice color schemes to be done.
Dave Swindell there is saying that the 6.3 extended slatted. I didn't think any of the slatted wings were 6.3s except for the Mark 6. And he's saying it's exactly the opposite. So again, we're straight into nightmare territory, aren't we?
Yes, it is. It literally is. It's like that. I think it's just kind of horrific. I've got a decal sheet somewhere in here of that was produced leading edge. In fact, I've got it right next to me. Leading edge produced that may well be something that comes up when this kit is released. This is the sheet here.
Right.
And it goes through those wings. So if anybody wants to buy this kit, it has kind of drawings in.
So I'm almost exactly wrong in what I said then.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm almost precisely exactly wrong.
Yeah. So
practice makes perfect.
Yeah, so it says 48 scale wingtip conversion from F86 F40 kits, long wing Sabres. So these are Sabre Mark 6s. This is from the pilot's manual, instruction manual, and shows those shortened wingtips, which this one's got the longer wingtips, I think, for that. But it opens up a lot of possibilities, this release. And John Tabinor as well must be spitting a little bit after he converted the Mark IV to a slatted wing aircraft and scratch built all the slats and did all of those. He was thinking, oh, if I'd have waited a few months. But I like this breakdown on this aircraft. But it's really more those markings. Whoever chose those markings is bordering on genius, I think, for the JASDF.
I think that was Luke, actually.
Releases. I think that's a perfect choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, love that release. I'm really pleased to see that appear.
We will jump on to the next one, which is 48 scale P51 Mustang, and this, as Dale said on the video, this is actually a D/K, because one of the other options in the kit is for a P51K. This kit, this scheme rather, may be familiar to people of a certain vintage who remember the old Revell
kit, yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Which they did in purple. They got it into their heads that that fuselage was actually purple, And I certainly, wasn't going to naysay that when I built the kit as a kid. And purple looked good. I still think the purple looks better, but yes, it's quite a famous aircraft. But no, not purple, olive drab by all accounts. And there is. So I'm just queuing up another photograph here, so we're a little bit out of sync here. So yeah, you've got the Millie P, the Millie G. I kept calling it the Millie P, the Millie G, in her olive drab and natural metal with. Well, here we have controversy. Was the stripe in red or was it in green? I actually was shown a color photograph. Rare color photograph where you can see it's red, so that settles that one. And then the second one is actually a K, and that's the Frisco Kid, of which Mr. Chris Buchholz was very helpful in helping me nail down some particulars on this scheme. And I think as far as we know, I don't think this one has been done as a decal much, either in kits or the aftermarket. So for people to go, oh, not another Mustang. Well, it's another Mustang and a different guise. So there you go.
And would be well, and should probably remember why a Mustang kit is being re-released.
Yes,
because it's a Mustang. Because it's a Mustang.
I mean, again, we come back to going back however many years ago was it? 4 years ago when Airfix announced their range of started doing 48 scale Mustangs. Again, there was a certain, whoops daisy, we'll come to that one in a minute. There was a certain collective rolling of the eyes about not another Mustang, but and the thing about the Airfix, the 48 scale Mustang and the 72nd scale one, actually, because I've built both, it's a really lovely kit to put together. And it looks fabulous when it's done. So it is a bit of a no-brainer to do that. And also, the Mustang is the best-looking fighter of the Second World War, almost bar none. So the fact that Mustangs are being released like this is only to be seen as a good thing, really.
It was a good-looking fighter.
Yeah, but you're going to say the P51H is the better-looking one.
It is.
Yeah, but that's obvious anyway.
And then he's going to go on and say, but the twin Mustang was even better looking than the H. He's going to start going down that route as well. But I mean, I am anybody that spends any time with me will know how much I love P51s. So it's just lovely. It's a good job we haven't got Lynn Ritger on here, because he'll be going on about Messerschmitt 109Es or something.
Or indeed Chris. I think we could set them off against each other. That would be good. Actually, we'll jump ahead to this one, because I did rather kind of like blow the surprise of that one. This is the 72nd scale P51 Mustang, which is coming back in F51 guise. And you get two schemes in this one. You are getting Kentucky Air National Guard.
That's a nice scheme as well. I like that.
Yeah,
that's
it's really sweet, isn't it?
It's not overdone.
No. There's a bit of interesting trivia for not this aircraft, but for this squadron, was that they were involved in a famous or infamous incident back in the post-war period when one of their aircraft, one of their P-51s, was sent up to investigate an object, and the aircraft disintegrated, and that was it. The pilot was lost, and it was always seen as one of these kind of grand UFO mysteries, but that was Kentucky Air National Guard. But not that aircraft, I hasten to add. But the second one, look at that. That's different.
I love the Korean national marking. It's a great national marking.
And also, that's one of those kits that you would get and you'd think, oh, well, I like the box art one, but actually that Korean one's really sweet, isn't it? It's kind of cool.
It shades
and you could have fun weathering that as well, because they were filthy.
Is it sprayed aluminium?
I don't know.
I'll have to go back and look at my reference photographs.
Like I say,
dirty.
A couple of them I've seen sort of parked on dirt strips. They get absolutely filthy.
Yeah,
just really hanging, aren't they?
Yeah. Also, Drew mentioned the those Korean markings. Would you believe, having gone through acres and acres and acres of reference photographs, all the markings were different on almost every single aeroplane. They weren't painted. They were painted to a standard, obviously, but a little bit of license between painters. Okay. So you can't just look at one aircraft and think, well, that's close enough. It's like, no, you've got to base it on. There are little things like the way the white, on some of them, the white will actually fare into a point. On others, it won't. On some of them, that white stripe is kind of equal. On others, it isn't. It's honestly, you have to pick an aircraft and depict the aircraft you're looking at. You can't do that thing of just go, well, they're all the same, aren't they? They're all painted to a standard. No, they weren't. Trust me. And in fact, the K on the rudder, on the fin and the rudder, I mean, that was just literally somebody with a, almost somebody with a, with a roller brush. It was so crude, but
yeah, it's a really odd style, isn't it? It's
yeah,
and that opens up some intriguing possibilities as well as to whether you would use the decal for that K or whether or not you'd actually could get away with hand painting that on there to get that effect rather than making it look perfect. Yeah,
I've not gone to all that trouble to do the decal and for you not to use the decal. So that's just that's outrageous, Mr. Pollard.
There's no guarantee that I'm going to use your stickers just because you've designed them.
Well, this is the last appearance by Spencer Pollard on this.
I'd mask and spray the K.
Obviously.
So would Spencer. So would Spencer if he had a silhouette cutting machine. But he's so 20th century.
All I can say to that is, why have a dog and bark yourself?
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, absolutely.
Why would I be mates with a decal designer if I was to get a silhouette cutter of my own when somebody?
Speaking of somebody who doesn't own a 3D printer, why would I be mates with somebody who's got a 3D printer? So
yes. I'm the only person in this that doesn't seem to have anything to offer. So
three. I've got three of them now.
I think you're talking yourself down there, Spencer. You do have something to offer, and Drew and myself ate our way through it with great alacrity. So
I'm merely here for the biscuity treats.
Yeah, hashtag biscuit.
Whereas you two are offering professional support whenever I might need it.
Right, here we go. Another boxing of a fairly recent kit with new markings. This is the Lightning F2A, but this time round, the squadrons and the colour schemes have actually been flipped. This is the old box art, by the way, so don't worry, don't pay any attention to that. But previously, it was the other way around. So what we've got here is, there we go.
That's what we've got
back in the room.
I always get these wrong. Is that 92 or 19?
That's 92.
92.
That's 92.
We've got 92 Squadron 1 in the dark green and silver finish, whereas previously the 92 Squadron 1 was an overall natural metal one. And then the B scheme is 19 Squadron in overall silver or natural metal, call it what you will. So everybody happy?
Very.
Oh,
I think the Lightning is one of those aircraft, and again, it's such personal choice. I think it looks so much nicer in toned down color schemes.
it really suited it, didn't it? And that sort of that overall green top surface on the F2As, it was such an oddity.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it really wears it nicely, and 92 is my second favorite RAF squadron. So yes, very much very happy with that.
And as we've discussed on here, I think we had an entire show based around this subject last year. I've never built a Lightning model.
Yeah, well, that's going to change. So
never built one. I've got 2 48 scale kits and 2 72nd scale kits in the loft. And I
think I built 6 of these after the kit was released.
Yeah, I just and it's for no apparent reason. It's just one of those models that sort of slipped through the cracks of what I've done over the years. I've never built a Lightning, and yet I absolutely adore them. I've got books on them, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, they're so lovely looking.
Well, that is a great scheme, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. beautiful.
Bit of a from a personal point of view, bit of a how can I word this? Kind of history recycling itself, because the first ever job that I did, first ever artwork job I did for Airfix was, ready for this, 25 years ago this year, and it was the 48 scale Lightning kits, because Dick Wall brought me on board because I think he was just maxed out, and he said, well, can you kind of handle this? So I was like, yeah, okay. So, and that was the Lightning kit. 48 scale Lightning kit was the first digital artwork that Airfix used in the range.
Wow.
So this scheme, Flagship 92, was one of the ones that went into the initial 48 scale kit. So I've almost kind of gone back to, I actually went back to my original artwork and realized in 25 years how horrendous it was, and redid it completely using Dick's original notes. But yeah, this is, yeah, talk about, you know.
The funny thing is, at this point in the Lightning's life, as these F2s were being recycled into F2As, they were also changing to the low visibility scheme at the same time. So you could get a Lightning F2 with the original pointy tail and small tank and straight wings in overall natural metal or metal and green. And you could also get the F2As. There were some F2As that were in natural metal and some that were in metal and green. So you had all four schemes on, you know, there was 4 different variations in service at the same time in Germany. 2 different standards of Lightning and 2 different schemes. And they all kind of intermingled on the flight lines. Really strange.
It's one of those subjects that sort of stuck with me as well, because I was in the combined cadet force when we were at grammar school, and one of 2 detachments that we did to an RAF base. The first one was RAF Bimbruck, and the second one was RAF Bruggen in Germany. And so when we went to RAF Bimbruck, that's where they had the Lightnings. The Lightning squadrons were there, and I got to spend some time with on the kind of flight line as part of that. And actually, although the guy got into trouble, I actually acted as a brakeman in a Lightning being towed out of the hangar onto the flight line as the guy sort of hanging off.
You had to be in the combined cadet force to get the good detachments. Yeah, I was in the air training corps. We only got the rubbish. We got the rubbish. And it kind of stuck with me, you know, and it stuck with me that how wonderful those aircraft were, and you know, seeing them up close and everything, which makes it even odder that I've never built one. I really need to sort that out, don't I?
Yes. Are we all in agreement that Royal Air Force Germany was pretty much the best Royal Air Force squadron unit ever, really?
RAF Germany was the best RAF.
Yes, it was the best RAF.
Well, you know, it's like, you know, it's just those names kind of live on. Wildenrath, Bruggen, Gütersloh, you know, all those, they just live on, don't they? They just...
And at the time that we were there as well, that we went over there, which would have been mid-80s, all of the aircraft were in wraparound camouflage and sort of low-vis markings. And actually, when we went there, one of the Bruggen Tornado squadrons was being run up, and the first of the aircraft were in the hangar having their markings painted on at the time that we were in there, and it's sort of, we'll perhaps talk about this in a midweek show, but I think that sets your formative kind of juices flowing when you go back to that period. And even now, my interest in anything aviation wise is between 75 and 85, and it stops at 85. It's like listening to music. I don't listen to any music past 1982. It's that kind of 75 to 85 is fixed in my brain. And I agree with you about RAF Germany. We had some fabulous stuff out there. You know,
we will do that as a show. We'll do that as a show, and we'll also discuss why you didn't take any more photographs or go over with a tape measure while they were doing that. You know, because that's a shocking lapse. Absolutely.
It always surprised me that you look at the RAF Germany Buccaneers without a refueling probe.
Yes,
they took the probes off. It's like, well, why have they done that? Well, the enemy's just over there. Look.
Yeah,
we'll just drop the airplane on it.
And also, why RAF Phantoms were never finished in wraparound camouflage when everything else was.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's an interesting little
Are you
side
bitter
issue.
about that? Are you bitter?
I don't think I'm going to sleep now that that's occurred to me. I'm so angry that they didn't do that. No, of course not. It'd be preposterous. And
So yes,
you know, and as I've made a bit of a habit of it in this elongated show of putting preposterous notions out there. I still think that the RAF Phantoms in that grey and green camouflage is not only the best camouflage ever applied to a Phantom, it's also the best camouflage ever applied to an RAF aircraft as well. So I'm going to just drop that in.
I'm with you. I'm with you there, so long as they are shiny aircraft in Type D roundels.
Oh, do we have to keep going down this path?
Yes, we do. Yeah. Or shall we skip ahead to the next one on the list here?
Yeah. The GR9, it's good to see this reappear actually, because it's certainly not been an ever present. This is despite the fact that people will say, oh, well, it's quite an old tool compared to the other stuff.
It's 10 years old.
Yeah, it's only 10. Yes, 10 years old. The GR7 GR9 is still a fabulous kit. It looks every inch a second generation RAF Harrier.
It's a
It's
proper
a nice model. Yeah, it is a really nice model.
It's a proper RAF Harrier, because the everything else that's been produced, other than the Airfix ones from 1991, everything else, the Hasegawa ones were AV8Bs, and the Italeri ones were YAV8Bs. So these are proper. This is why when people were saying, well, can't you do kind of like AV8Bs from it? No, you can't, because the AV8, the differences between the Harrier, the RAF Harriers and the American Harriers are quite profound.
Yeah,
they're easy for a modeler to do, but they're quite difficult to account for in terms of a tooling.
Yes.
I think that's how I'd phrase it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Drew. I think if I wanted to build a 72nd scale AV8B, I think I'd probably use this kit as the base.
Yeah. This is where you'd start without a shadow of a doubt.
Because it's the best 72nd scale second generation Harrier you can buy. It's head and shoulders above all of the others. But you're right, John, what you say as well. To modify the kit parts to do that would be fundamental changes of detail and that kind of thing. But certainly this would be the way to go. I think all of us have built this kit, haven't we? Drew, you've certainly built it.
I've built it, yes. Yeah. I built it.
And when I built it, I actually added detail to it. So I went to town on my version of it, and I loved every minute of it. I've still got the model is actually still sat in the cabinet behind me. It's beautiful. It's a really, really nice kit, and it doesn't suffer from any of the foibles of the Hasegawa kit that can be problematic to put together. This thing isn't problematic. It's got a couple of little areas that I seem to remember were needed some fettling here and there before it would go together. But on the whole, it goes together beautifully, and it is super accurate as well. It really is brilliant.
Well, there's two new marking schemes for this one. This one, I'm very grateful to Dave Fleming and the Harrier SIG, because we were casting around for a different scheme, something that hadn't been really been done before, and I think Dave came up with a photograph of this, which is ZG857 EBZ of number 41 Squadron, and it was like, like that. That's a really kind of it's a really smart little scheme. We're so used to kind of like, one squadron, two squadron, one squadron, three squadron, four squadron, all the usual suspects. This was one of the more unusual Harrier iterations from towards the end of its career. Also, overall medium sea grey as well. So I'm
so certainly easier to paint. That's for sure.
Exactly, for the novice, a much easier scheme to paint. And then the other one is the companion, because the previous boxing had done oh goodness me, I've forgotten the name of it now. It was the other glamour model one, and I forgot what the other one was called. This is Michelle anyway. So if you've got that other kit, you can actually do both of them now. Both of the they were GR7As that were deployed
Lucy.
at Lucy,
Apparently.
that was it. Yeah.
Lucy.
This was deployed at Kandahar, and this is a GR7A, so it has the 75% lurks. This is like one of the more early ones, whereas the ZG857 is it's a later aircraft. It's a GR9 with the 100% lurks and the frog eye intakes. But as you'll know, Drew, you once got into a famous spat with somebody about who said that the easiest way you can tell is that the GR7s have the 75% lurks and the GR9s have the 100%. And it's like, no, it's not like that at all. No.
And then other people started saying, you only saw the 100%, the frog eyes were only seen on the 100% lurks. And then photographs started popping up all over the place of 75% lurks with frog eyes on them and stuff. And it's like, okay. And it was one of the best things about this kit was the fact that it had both styles of lurks in the kit.
Yeah. It almost goes further than that, doesn't it? Because this is another one of those subjects where you have to almost pick an aircraft at a particular time, because not only did different versions swap and change, the same aircraft could swap and change as well. And I found that with building both the 72nd scale one and the 48th scale Hasegawa one that I did, that I had to pick a particular prototype and model that prototype at a particular time, because it was like, oh, well, that's got 75%, that's got 100%, it's the same airplane. How's that happen?
Yeah, but especially as I can distinctly remember when these aircraft were being built, it was said that if it was built with a 75%, that's all it would ever have, and if it was built with 100%, that's all it would ever have. And then before long, they started popping up with, oh really? Should we have this discussion then?
The other thing about this particular one as well, because it's a veteran, anybody that's seen the one that's at Yeovilton, these things were absolutely hanging by the time they came out of service. They were, don't be under any illusions that these aircraft were clean. They absolutely were disgusting by the time they'd finished.
They were worked hard in Kandahar, weren't they? They really. I mean, just look at the mission. Look at the tally on the nose of that one. That's a lot of CRV7s.
Yeah, I mean, whenever it takes me back to those two projects that I did and how much I loved them, but 11 years ago, which is not long before I built that one, actually, Matt, was it? I cannot begin to tell you how much I adore this airplane, and anybody that knows me knows I love Harriers, but the GR9 is by far and away my favorite variant, and I could look at it all day, every day, and kind of not get bored of it. It's just glorious. And John will tell you, because we went to Yeovilton together, didn't we, a couple of years ago? And how long did I spend photographing the one there? It was almost, Spence, we need to go. They want to close.
You had to be peeled off that aeroplane, essentially.
Yeah,
I'll tell this story. I'll probably told it before, but the dark day that was the final Harrier ops in the UK, which was, goodness me, that was December 2010. That was exactly. And I think it's fair to say, serious face, it was honestly, me personally, it was almost kind of like a bit too much to kind of cope with that day. So I went to Wells, did some Christmas shopping, and I went for the walk between you go outside the boundary of Wells by the Bishop's Palace, and it's literally, you're in Wells or Sanford, and then that's it, you're in open countryside. It's the most bizarre contrast you can imagine. And I was walking on this stretch of this path that takes you out of the city, and I was just kind of like, lost in my own thoughts and things, whatever. And then suddenly I heard a Harrier. Couldn't see it, but I could hear it. And it was low, and I heard it shoot across the Somerset levels. Whether or not it was an aircraft doing like a final farewell to Yeovilton, I don't know. Whether I imagined it, it's entirely possible. But I just remember, you know, that kind of just that sound on that day, and I just thought, yeah, I needed that.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We all have these machines, and I remember that day seeing the footage of the final flights, and then closing down and everything shutting down one by one, and then it going silent. And I remember watching the video, feeling bereft at the thought that we'd lost these machines. And it's crazy. They're just machines that have got a shelf life, but to me, as somebody that's adored them from the minute I saw them, you know, I jokingly, I sort of joke.
Well, they had a shelf life, a lot of which was still remaining.
Yes. I mean, I joke with you guys, don't I, that the F-15 Eagle is the most beautiful jet ever to fly. And I stand by that. Drew always says, I must have forgotten the Mirage F1. And so we sort of bat this backwards and forwards. But the Harrier and its family are so ingrained into my psyche. I don't think I'll ever get past that.
We'll rattle through this one because we are going to return to Harriers. Then we're gonna have to literally. We've got about 10 minutes, so we can just blast through the vintage classic stuff. So we've got one more reissue coming back, which is the Dornier 17Z.
Nice model, again, really nice model.
This isn't the box art, but there are two new schemes, and there are the two new schemes, and yeah.
A lot of nice detail in that model. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. So vintage classics. Dun, 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 dun. Well, this is pretty darn cool because we're back to Harriers again. And the 24 scale Harrier Gr1 is coming back, but it would be interesting to see whether they use this artwork, which was a rough that apparently Roy Cross did for the catalogue at the time. This never made it as the finished artwork. Because the finished artwork is that famous kind of like, you know, kind of like Dunsfold shot, really, isn't it? Of it hovering with the airfield in the background. But this, you know, this is like almost like a lost rare piece of Roy Cross Airfix artwork.
I don't dislike this box art, but I can't help thinking, and it's not my decision to make, and Airfix will make their decisions as and when they need to. But that Harrier Gr1 artwork is so iconic. I can't. I wouldn't be able to understand why you wouldn't use that. That it is literally, to me, it is the 24 scale super kit artwork from that series. The only one that sort of comes, I guess, close to that would be the Stuka artwork, and the reason for that is they were both on their end. They were different from the others. So, but that Harrier artwork is so iconic. I would be shocked really if they did.
I don't know.
I don't dislike this. I kind of like this artwork. I think it's.
I like it. I'm not quite sure that blade aerial for an AV8A should be on there, but I like it. And I think we'll open that up as a discussion. We're going to put both images up on the Facebook page probably tomorrow. I think we'll open it up as a discussion to which one people think they like. I like this because it's different, and it's. But I do agree that that other artwork is so massively iconic.
And also this artwork, it looks like a rough. It doesn't. Parts of it are really jarringly out of scale.
It's very much an unfinished work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Roy Cross's roughs are still other people's finished artwork.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, of course they are.
But yeah, from what I can tell, I think this is mirroring the original releases, which is the #1 Squadron aircraft and a US Marine Corps AV8A. So yeah, it's I built two of these, and you've built one, I think, as a two-seater. I vaguely remember.
No, not me,
not you.
No.
But yeah, big old kit. This, I mean, it was very much a kind of like at the time, it was a bit like the 24 scale Spitfire. It was groundbreaking stuff, and I think I've got the scale models issue from 1970, long time ago, that covered this one. And But I like that artwork. We're going to open that up
Yeah.
as a discussion, I think.
Yeah, I mean, certainly this release, when I saw this release was going to be re-released, it sort of jarred my enthusiasm, because ever since I finished the T2, I planned to do what I'd done on that model on either a GR1 or a GR3. I haven't quite nailed down, probably a GR3 actually, using this kit as the base, and then using all of the ideas that were brought into play on the T2.
Mhm.
So I very much see one of these in my future plans to do a single seater with all of the whistles and bells on it. So I'm pleased to see this return. That's for sure.
Drew, have you built any of the 24 scale aircraft?
No. Simply
Wow.
no, never did. Never did.
Should we just pull faces?
I owned the Mustang once upon a time.
Unbelievable.
You never built any?
You knew about people all the time, don't you?
Oh, incidentally, if anybody has got a copy of the Airfix Mustang book that I can buy from them, because I can't find mine anywhere. Because I bought it. I bought it when I was about 12 years old with some birthday money, and it stayed in my collection for 30 odd years, and now I can't find it.
I know I've got two of the Messerschmitt 109 ones. So
Yeah.
You haven't, because you gave me one.
Oh, that's true. I've only got one of the Messerschmitt 109 ones. So
if anybody stumbles across or knows where to get the Airfix one,
yeah.
The Mustang one, I would very much like to get another copy.
I'll tell you what, Joe. I wish I'd known that, because the last time that the three of us were at Thornbury for the show, there was a box that had a load of those Airfix books in, and they had every single one of those 24 scale books in there.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Never mind. It's just anyway. It's not urgent. It's a bit like, if anybody does stumble across one at some point and is happy to part with it, I will be happy to strike a deal. It's just one of those little things. It's like, on plastic wings, you have to, you've grown up with it. You have to have a copy of it to hand, even if and for whatever reason, some stuff goes missing, doesn't it?
Well, there you go. We'll set a task for our lovely viewers out there. See if you can find Drew a copy of the PSL book on the Airfix 24 scale Mustang. So there we go. We'll keep
an eye open.
Absolutely right. We'll rattle through the last of the vintage classics here, and we have we'll do the joke. Here's a kit that's come back again. Bum bum bum. It's the Boomerang, which built two of these when it was last reissued. I think it was about 1993. Nice little kit. It's riveting.
You know what? I love the Boomerang. I think it's such a neat little aeroplane.
Yep.
It's such a neat little aeroplane, and I think it's one of those ones that I would suggest could stand a retooling. I really do. I really think it could stand to be retooled in 72nd or 48th. I think it's such a neat little aeroplane.
I would not disagree with you there, because also the amount of colour schemes you can throw at a Boomerang is actually really surprising.
But do those colour schemes keep coming back?
Yeah, we've done the coming back joke, Spencer. Come on, really.
Spencer, move on.
Move on. Oh God, well, I'm dreading the next one. Okay.
Nice.
Very good.
Of all the vintage classics this year, this is the one for me.
Yeah,
this is the one for me.
I would point out that it isn't 144 scale; it is 172nd scale. So that's a bit of a faux pas on the artwork there. But I have fond memories of the one at Middle Wallop. In fact, you know what? Mission statement here. We need to have an interesting modelling company day out at the Museum of Army Flying at Middle Wallop. There we go. We'll organise that. Yeah,
nice little museum. It
is a very nice museum. Very good cafe there, obviously. Yeah. But going back to the kit, this has not been around again for over 20 odd years. It's coming back with the two options for an Army Air Corps aircraft with the Type D roundels. Weirdly, later aircraft had Type C roundels. Does that make sense to you?
Really?
Yeah, they went from Type D to Type C, then they went to red blue tactical when they went over to the black and green finish. So it was a weird, it was a weird kind of thing how that kind of like turned out. But yeah,
was this one of those kits that was Mike granted?
it was, and it's genius what he did with that kit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
But it
plenty of
wouldn't be anything less,
inspiration
would it? Really?
No,
Yeah, the US one comes with floats, incidentally, so you can do it as a land-based one or a float plane. And like I say, it's 72nd scale. It's not 48 scale, 144 scale. Then we have the old Fiat G50 is coming back in the Vintage Classics range. I built this one when it was reissued 1992. And it's a straightforward kit, no bells and whistles. I mean, it comes from the 1960s. One of those ones that it's actually great fun to kind of practice your modelling skills on.
Yeah, and also one of those that you can add plenty of detail and not worry about, the restrictive canopies or anything like that. It's got a lot of possibilities for a little.
Didn't Mike Grant do one of them as well?
I think he might have done.
Possibly.
or you may also have seen the one that was done by Vic Sherman as well. He did a really nice version of it. He basically rebuilt the whole thing.
Last one. I mean, I built that kit when I was maybe 13 years old, but that's the last time I built it.
And another vintage classic coming back, and I am particularly stoked about this one, is the F80 Shooting Star.
That's a beautiful little model.
Yeah.
That's one of Airfix's finest.
It was one of their, what I think we'd call it, one of their second generation ones from the 70s. It was the step up from what they had done before. I've got a couple of boxings of the original kit, the actual original 70s one, but never actually got around to building one.
And what's
that is a beautiful model of a beautiful aeroplane.
Yes. And what's nice about this as well is that sort of pretty solid standard kit is going to be sort of much improved by 21st century stickers as well. The decals in this kit are going to be great.
One would hope so.
So whereas in previous years, if you buy reissues and that kind of thing, they might not have been quite as good, but that will certainly make this a very attractive package with those markings on. So yeah, looking forward to seeing this one reappear. I'm with you, Drew. I've seen a few of these built up, and it does look like a very
and the thing is as well, it's a really easy rescribing job.
Yeah,
it's one of the simplest shapes and easiest, in terms of detail to rescribe, and you do that and make sure your modeling is very clean, and it'll stand up against anything today. It really is one of my favorite Airfix kits.
Yeah,
yeah.
Really
and
nice.
The last of the vintage classic aircraft releases, we do have a couple more things to mention before we go off air tonight. It's the Beagle Bassett 206. I think this was reissued. It was like a club special or something. It
was. It was one of those white box jobs, wasn't it? A couple of years ago.
But that it was reissued with period transfers, I think is the best way of putting it. Whereas I think I can comfortably state these will be a little bit more modern. But yeah, fabulous looking airplane. And it's the Airfix later reissued this in the 70s as the Royal Flight one.
With the red.
That's it. Yeah. But just a fabulous looking aeroplane, isn't it?
It's a cute little thing. It is a cute little thing.
And also, again, actually a very, very nice kit. It's actually very, very, very nicely detailed, for its era. I am actually looking forward to building one of those because it's just one of those ones that's, it's been on the list of things to do, build for years, but coming back now. So hurrah. We're also mentioned in passing that there are also two ships coming back in the 1/600 scale range. There is HMS Fearless, which was the ship, if you are a James Bond fan, that is the ship that is featured at the end of The Spy Love Me. No, just me then. Fine, okay. Surely you must know that. It's right at the end when
yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I do know.
Carly
what,
Simon's banging out "Nobody Does It Better," and and then you've just got those what can best be described as it's a love letter to the Royal Navy from that film, and and it's HMS Fearless, and it's awesome stuff. So that's coming back, and also HMS Devonshire is coming back as well. And then in the 76 scale tank range, we've got the Joseph Stalin Js3 tank is coming back, and the Type 97 Chi-Ha Japanese tank, which is actually, that Chi-Ha is a really, really neat little kit. It's, again, it was one of the later Airfix tank kits from the kind of like the early to mid 70s, and it's pretty nice stuff actually. And also, before we forget, because the car modelers will be wondering why we've left them out of it again, Airfix are also doing 3 new 43rd scale car kits this year. In their starter set range, they're doing a Bugatti, is it Chiron or Chiron? What do you reckon? Chiron. A Bugatti Chiron, which looks absolutely terrifying. I wouldn't want that in my rear view mirror. And they're also doing a share screen. They're also doing a Pagani. I'm partly dyslexic.
Some other sports car, and then
a fast car. Pagani Harrier.
No idea.
No idea. No. Anybody? No. Fine. But yeah, 48 scale, 43rd scale rather. Kit that looks rather neat, doesn't it? Looks rather concept car-y. And then also coming something a little bit more to my tastes, and and also something I think we can all pronounce properly, and that is the best car ever made, in my opinion.
Jaguar,
not the Mini, not the Jaguar. Jaguar.
I thought I'd say it because you said we could pronounce it properly. And I thought, oh yeah, what a Jaguar?
Oh, look at that.
We can't see anything, John. I'm still seeing the Beagle Basset.
Oh right, sorry. Let's get the Beagle Basset out of the way. There we go. Yep, there we go. I didn't put the images up for the other ones, did I? Oh dear, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
That's fine. Yeah, there we go. Jaguar, E-Type Jag. What a absolute look at that! Isn't that just the most gorgeous car ever made?
It's a beautiful vehicle, isn't it?
It is. It's just. Oh, it just makes you weep, doesn't it? It's just so beautiful. Utterly fabulous. So 3 new car kits in 1/43rd scale from Airfix. So yeah, I've just got a message from Dale saying screen's still on the Basset. So sorry about that. Okay, look, we will show you. We'll show you the other ones. Hang about. We'll show you the other ones. It's getting towards the end of the show, and we're all a bit tired. We're all a bit emotional.
And I've started modelling.
And he started. Well, he's so interested in what we're talking about. He started modelling. There we go. There's the Pagani Hyra.
Huayra. I don't know.
Close enough. And then the other one is just calling it back up again. Was the for goodness sake, it's disappeared off the screen now. It was the Bugatti. Come on, talk amongst yourselves. I'm
no. The pressure's all on you.
Yes, indeed. Because frankly, we're at the point now where it's just like.
Here we go. It's the Bugatti Chiron. There we go. Share screen. This is a bit like kind of like being Rick Wakeman trying to play 3 keyboards in one go here.
So Rick Wakeman, get it right.
There you go. Bugatti Chiron, that is.
Yeah, Chiron. In a roundabout way, yeah. So yeah, 3 new car kits.
Is that the next step on from the Veyron?
I think so.
Because the Veyron was like 1,000 horsepower, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like I say, that is terrifying. I would not want to see that looming into my rearview mirror. So, and also the Mary Rose ship is coming back as well, which Dale outlined on the video. So there we go.
For the people saying that 1/43rd is an odd scale, it's actually a very traditional car scale.
It's a huge collector's scale.
It's a huge collector's scale 143rd. So there is a reason why that scale has been picked.
And the other thing as well is
Thank you, Peter.
it translates over to railway scales as well, because O
Yes,
gauge is 43rd.
Yeah.
So those car kits can appeal to the O gauge railway modelling fraternity as well.
Yeah, who why ra and Sheeron. Thank you, Peter, for correcting us. What can I say? I'm from Dudley. That's my excuse. So that's we've done 2 hours tonight, and people have been dogged enough to stick with us. So what is your highlight of all that then, Spencer?
The Anson.
Okay,
I'm going to go for that. Although obviously, for me personally, the Mark 9 Spitfire will be the project for 2022 for me, and I can't wait to get involved in doing that. So, as a project, as a build, and as something I think I'm going to dive into, Spitfire Mark 9 is obviously, I would imagine, probably the aircraft project for this year. But in terms of a release that's made me smile and made me want to sort of have a crack at it, it's got to be the Anson, really. That's love every single fibre of its little being.
Drew.
Well,
he's thinking. He's torn. He's like,
no, I'm buffering. I'm buffering. No, as much as people would expect me to say the Buccaneer, I've got to say the Anson.
Yeah,
I really. It's just there's something about that and the options that are in the kit as well that makes me really, really want to get hold of that kit. Really do. The Buccaneer will come my way just as a result of it being a Buccaneer. If you're not, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas the Anson has come sort of out of left field, and I've gone, oh, you know, a Buccaneer. I go, yes, we're getting a Buccaneer. The Anson has made me go, oh, I really want that, and seeing the schemes and the renders and stuff just makes you want it even more.
Yeah.
So it's the Anson for me.
And yours?
I'm gonna be incredibly boring. I'm gonna say the Anson, because when a bit like when I first heard about it as a project, a bit like when I remember, you know, kind of when I heard about the Chipmunk, and I just literally kind of stood up and did a Jurassic Park, an Alan Partridge Jurassic Park, exactly, and yeah, the Anson, because it's a slightly left field release. But is it? Because when you think about it, you've got this core kind of like, I wouldn't call it a range, but you've got this core little selection of subject matter that's started to build up now within the Airfix range in 48 scale. So you've got the Spitfire Mark 1, you've got the Hurricane Mark 1, you've got the Bolt and Paul Defiant, you've got the Tiger Moth, you've got the Bristol Blenheim, now you've got the Avro Anson, and it all kind of follows a kind of, there's a theme there, if you see what I mean. I don't want to call it a Battle of Britain theme, because a lot of these aircraft operate, you know, were beyond that, but it is that kind of early kind of like 1940s RAF kind of thing. And I
would say if they had announced an Anson in 72nd scale, I would have gone, yeah, I can see that was going to be on the cards at some point. It was obvious. It was an obvious choice at some point. The fact that they've announced it in 48th is what really makes me go, oh, that's, do you know what I mean? But in an entirely positive way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in the least bit bothered that it's not 72nd scale. I just would have expected it to have been 72nd scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, it's 48th. And I just think that's a delightful subject for that scale.
Yeah.
Really do.
No, I agree. And I just, you know, I mean, obviously I'm biased in this regard, but just that sloping windscreen Anson, oh, lovely.
And I like the white the
Aussie one,
Coastal Command one, yeah.
That's a rare occasion. Everybody, is a rare moment of actual kind of agreement between the three of us. You know, I think they'll probably put a statue of us up somewhere. You know, that rare moment of accord between the three of us.
Yes.
Ding.
Yeah, exactly. And which Spencer has now ruined.
It's just,
Get your own bell.
I'm literally doing a Jonathan mock from the other week. I'm like, my eyes have stopped, literally stopped.
Trust me, nobody wants to do a Jonathan mock, right? Any other business?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think we covered it all, didn't we? We covered all the ground.
Yeah,
pretty in detail, I think. Tom.
And I think we've covered Airfix's 2022 program quite extensively.
So overall, I mean, like I say, I can't comment, but overall, between the two of you, what do you think? What are your overall impressions then in terms of a spread of releases?
I think it's a nice, decent spread of very interesting subjects.
Yeah,
it's from complete no-brainers in massive scales like a Spitfire to little surprising choices, shall we say, like the Anson in 48th, to obvious replacements like the 48 scale Buccaneer, and everything. Most of what's been released this year seemed to me to be pretty obvious choices, with the exception of the Anson, but that doesn't make them any less welcome. A Meteor in 72nd and F8, yeah, absolutely. It's just, it's an obvious choice. A 48 scale Buccaneer, yes. A 24th scale Spitfire Mark 9, well, obviously.
It's like I say, it's the greatest hits package, isn't it?
Very much, very much. And a really nice classics package as well, I think. A really nice classics package. But yeah, impressed. One of the best years for a long time, I think.
Okay. So who's back for Sunday then?
I'll be about. So
okay, I'm not. No, I'm otherwise engaged on Sunday.
That's fine, because we've got other people's ranges to talk about on Sunday. So
yes,
a lot of stuff has happened in the last couple of days or so. So it's like, let's collect it all and talk about it. So anyway, look, on that note, it just remains for me to say thank you to Drew, thank you to Spencer, more importantly, thank you to everybody who's tuned in for tonight's groaning 2+ hours of us going through the Airfix 2022 range. Thank you very much, as always.
Stuck with us for +2 hours. That's some going. Thank you very much, people.
And like I said, this is actually our first proper show of the year as well, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
So on that note, just to say thank you very much. Wherever you are in the world, stay safe, stay modeling, and we will see you on Sunday. So from us all,
take care all. See you later.
Bye.